What's up, everybody? My name is Parasite. Welcome back to the Jose Mourinho Challenge with Barcelona. That's going to be the last time you hear me say that, because in just a few minutes, I will no longer be the Barcelona manager. We are 13 games into the La Liga season, towards the end of November, and I've been offered a deal with a new team to be their manager, and I'm going to accept it. But before we get there, I have gone through the offseason and the start of this season like I was going to continue at Barcelona. So I have done some transfer business. I only made 2 sales, and the first was Mohamed Camara to Valencia. Defensive midfield was a position I targeted that I thought I needed improved depth in. Camara was our player there last year, and for the most part, he didn't really play very well. Obviously, defensive midfielders don't get great ratings, but for the most part, he wasn't even getting average ratings. And so I thought it was the best interest to move him on and improve the position. So we've sold him to Valencia for 6.5 million, and we've replaced him already. But before we get to that replacement, I'll show you my second and final sale. The other player we sold was another depth piece, so no big losses. Marc Guehi has been sold to Guimaraes for a pretty cheap fee, $2.4 million. He's 33 years old. Even though he has decent natural fitness, his physicals are really starting to fall off, as are his technicals. He's a good defender, but he's not good in the air, and he's not good to the ball at his feet either. So he's not really a player I trusted to step in and play in that back 3 or in the back 2 at the 4-4-2. And even though he was only like a 5th, 6th choice, we are Barcelona. So I thought we could get better, and so I've replaced him as well. Now over to our signings, and the first was a replacement for Camara, and that is Kamara, Boubacar Kamara. He's come in to be the backup for Nico, and he can also play alongside him in the 4-4-2 when we're facing higher level of opposition. I like a more defensive player there, and he's got just a lot more to his game than Kamara had. He's obviously still got some pretty good physicals, even at an advanced age. Not quite as good, but still pretty solid. And he's got really good technicals. He's got a lot of passing. That's something that Kamara didn't have at all. And some decent dribbling as well. He can get a little bit further forward and be more of a playmaker in the attacking third. He's also still got really good mentals. So he's a much more natural replacement for Nico as that defensive deep lying playmaker. And with that versatility, I thought it was a great signing. Was a little bit expensive for a 34-year-old, $16.5 million, but I think it's worth it. I think he's a big upgrade and one probably really needed that more than any other position. But unfortunately, we've barely got to use him because just a few weeks into the season, he got a hip injury and he's been out for months. And so I think he's only played 5 games in La Liga, and it's going to be the only 5 we played with him. Our second signing was a little bit more sentimental, but it was still at a position of need. We have signed Daryl Dike to Barcelona. Last year, we had Julian Alvarez in on loan at the end of the season to be that 4th striker, and he was pretty good for us. But they didn't want to loan him back to us for a reasonable fee, and so we went out looking for a replacement, and that is going to be Daryl Dike. We had him at Sporting, obviously, and he was just an amazing super sub for us. I'm hoping he can do the same thing here. He's going to be our 4th striker. And, I mean, he's still pretty good. He actually went to Lazio. We sold him to Lazio for $28.5 million. And he actually had a really good career with them. 15 goals, 19 goals, 10 goals, even 11 goals in his last season there. So he's still a really good player. Obviously a little bit older, 33 years old. But his physical is still exceptionally good. Still got that size, still got that finishing ability. Should be the same Daryl Dike that we know and love. The fee was $13.5 million. Again, a little expensive for a player that age, but he's still a really good striker, and he's obviously the best goal scorer in the U.S. history. He has 97 goals and 145 caps. Hopefully he can reach 100. Our next signing was a free transfer, and he was actually a replacement for Gianluca Busio, another player we had on loan last year. They wouldn't let me loan him at all, so we needed another guy that could be a versatile midfield piece, and so we got Angelo Stiller on a free contract, $92K a week to be a depth midfielder. I think is fine. His physicals aren't very good, but his technicals are good, can do a lot of different things, good mentals. He can play a little bit further forward. Probably best played as a defensive deep line playmaker. He's got the passing. Tackling's good enough. And we've needed him with the Kamara injury, so it turned out to be a pretty good signing. And then we got one I probably wouldn't have made if I was staying at Barcelona. We have signed Christian Pulisic to Barcelona on a free transfer. He is 35 years old, and he basically has no physicals anymore. He's a pretty awful player, but he's also not registered for the first team. He just come in on a free contract, 15K a week wages, to be a player for the B team, and so he can retire as a Barcelona player. All sentimentality there, but it's Christian Pulisic. Our next signing and the final player for the first team is the Marc Guehi replacement. It's another Chelsea center back, Malang Sarr. Obviously, we signed him to Chelsea in my last season there on a free contract. Never actually got to play with him because he came in the season I left. But we've now brought him back to Barcelona, and once again, we won't really play with him because we'll be leaving. But he is just all around a better player than Marc Guehi. And he's got some versatility. All of our center backs we've got are right-footed and can play right back. We need an extra player that can cover at the left back position that's actually left-footed. And Malang Sarr is perfect for that. to be a depth center back and to cover at left back, and he's just a better player. His physicals are better, way better on the ball, like miles better than Guehi on the ball, and still a good defender. And the deal was pretty cheap as well. Actually, less than what we sold Guehi for, 1.3 million. For a player that is 34 years old, but wages are still cheap. He is actually retiring at the end of the season. And then finally, we've got 2 players for the future. Like I said, I was going to play the offseason like I was going to stay at Barcelona, so I'm still going to be thinking about their future. So I brought in Carlos Cernatic, an 18-year-old Croatian midfielder, for 17.5 million. He's pretty dang good. For 18 years old, a 2-star player for Barcelona, I think he might even be 2.5 based on what I can see. Dribbling, he's got everything really. Not a great defender, but as that more attacking central midfielder, he should be very good at that. He is a very, very good, well-rounded midfielder and still really young, 18. I think he's a great signing. It says he only has 4-star potential, but he looks pretty tremendous. And then our final signing was another midfielder, a Brazilian one, Luis Fernando. A little bit more expensive, 18.75 was his release clause. He is a little bit older as well, 19. Maybe not as good right now, but he has 5-star potential, and he's still pretty dang good. He's got 18 vision and 16 work rate. So even though he only has 5 tackling, he definitely works hard. He's got the technique, he's got the passing, really good dribbling. His physical is not quite as good as the last guy, Stranatic, but still pretty dang good. His mentals are still really good. He's still a really, really good player and a great young player for the future. Now we'll take a quick look at how he gotten on since that Champions League final victory over Liverpool. We were in the FIFA Club World Cup, and we lost to Chelsea again on penalties. 0-0 in the match. Cucurella missed the first penalty, and they hit all 5. We did also have 4 red injuries in this game. And they're not like yellow injuries that I kept them in there too long. They were immediately injured, 4 different players. And so we were down a man for a bit as well. Trent got injured, Nico Williams, Zaniolo, and Gabel, so all important players as well. It was annoying to be knocked out in the quarterfinal on penalties to Chelsea, but I wasn't that concerned about the FIFA Club World Cup. Then to start the next season, it was another really good start for us. We beat Manchester United in the Super Cup, and then started unbeaten in the Liga. Some big wins in there as well, beating Celta Vigo away from home 5-2, beating Deportivo at home 6-0, and beating Real Madrid away from home 3-0. Best results so far. In the Champions League group, we got Shakhtar, Tottenham, and Young Boys, one of the easiest draws we've gotten in a while. And for the first time in this series, we might not make it out of the group. With Shakhtar and Young Boys, we might not make it out, because for whatever reason, we have been awful in the Champions League group. And it all started with this match against Cadiz. Away from home, we lost 2-1, even though we were the much better team. And take a look at the date, 25th of September. If we go back last season, when we started to struggle, 26th of September is when we lost our first game and went on that awful stretch. I don't know what it is about this time of the year, but it happened again. After that Cadiz match, we lost in the second Champions League group stage game to Tottenham away from home, and we were the much better team, over doubled their XG, and yet we still lose 2-1. Awesome. We did fortunately get a couple wins in the Liga. We've done well in the Liga. We just can't win in the group because we lost to Young Boys away from home in the Champions League. I don't understand. And once again, we were the better team, but it's the same thing as last year. Our strikers cannot do anything. They are absolutely atrocious in the Champions League. They have so many shots, but they struggle to put them on target. And when they do, they just straight up don't score them. And so we couldn't score against Young Boys. We lose. Then another couple wins in the Liga. We're doing well there. But then Young Boys again, can't even beat them at home. 1-1. And our only goal was a penalty. And I'm going to show you the match stats for this one, because it was as one-sided as it really gets. 38 shots. We can only put 13 of them on target. And of those 13, we only scored 1 of them, and it was a penalty. We had almost 4 XG, over 3 non-penalty XG, and we got 0 goals from that 3+ penalty XG. It doesn't make sense. So yeah, if we look at the group, we are 3 points behind Young Boys, and they have the tiebreaker over us. They beat us, and they drew with us. So if we finish on even points, they will go through ahead of us 100% of the time. And so we've got 2 games left in the group. We have to win both of them against Tottenham and Shakhtar, and Young Boys have to lose one and lose or draw the other for us to be able to go ahead of them. And Tottenham, we're going to go ahead of them, have to lose both, I believe. So we are not in a very good spot to qualify from this group. We might actually be headed to the Europa League, but fortunately for me, that's going to be a problem for the next manager. So now it is time to finally say goodbye to Barcelona and move to what could be our final club here in the series. Obviously, we had 3 leagues to choose from: Serie A, Liga, and the Bundesliga. So it limited the options we had in terms of actually moving on, which is why we were in November before we made our move. But we've got an offer, and it's one I'm happy with. It is a step down for sure, especially in like the reputation of the club. Might seem a little bit weird that I'm going there, but I think they're actually a pretty good team. And there weren't really many other options. I'll just go out and say we aren't going to Serie A. There was an option. We could have gone to AC Milan. Their manager has been fired, and I'm pretty sure I'd get the job. But I looked at their squad, and it's not bad. It's just very, very, very old. Like, their average starter is like 33 years old. And yeah, I just didn't feel great about that. You know, if I had to do a rebuild, how long is it going to take for us to be able to win the league? Especially because Juventus are insanely good. Inter Milan are always in the later stages of the Champions League knockouts. There's a lot of teams there to compete with, and I just felt like it'd be a little bit harder to be competitive with AC Milan over the team that I've selected. And the league we are also not going with is Ligue 1. In that league, really the only team I'd consider is PSG. They're just so far ahead of everyone else, both in terms of talent and money. It's just near impossible to compete in any short term. So yeah, I was really only considering PSG. And that job's rarely ever going to be available. Only really if he moves on to another club, because you're not going to fire a manager that's always winning the league for the most part. So we are going to the Bundesliga. So Germany awaits. And we're obviously not going to Bayern Munich. We're also not going to Dortmund. The club we are going to, what could be the final club in this series, in the Bundesliga, is Wolfsburg. We're going to be the Wolfsburg manager. Might seem like a pretty big step down, but they've actually been really successful in this series, and they've got a pretty good squad. One that's really on the same level as the AC Milan squad, but a lot younger. We look at how Wolfsburg's done in the Bundesliga in this series. This year they're in 9th place, so not having the best season, which does explain why the manager was fired. They're 14 points behind Bayern Munich, and Bayern are going to be hard to overtake. They're still an exceptional team, but I feel like after them, there's not as much competition as there really is in Serie A. Leipzig are fine without being great. Same for Hertha, Dortmund, Mönchengladbach, Leverkusen. All those teams are probably on a similar level to us. So I think we should be competitive right there to finish second and really compete with Bayern in the coming years if we can make some good signings. But this year they're 9th. Last year they were 4th, so they got Champions League football, and they have actually qualified from the group. So we'll be in the knockouts of Wolfsburg. The year before that, another kind of a struggling year, 11th place. Year before that, another struggle a little bit, 9th. So in the past 4 years, not the best, but they did get Champions League football. And before that, they were pretty successful. 9th again, but 2028, they were 3rd, Champions League football, and then 8th. So they've always been in and around the Champions League spots or the Europe spots for the most part. 3rd in 2026, 6th in 2025, 3rd in 2024, then 6th, and then 4th. And in the first season, they were 5th. So they've been constantly around the European spots almost the entire length of the series. We've had a couple of years where they've been a little bit further down, 9th to 11th place. But for the most part, they've been competitive. They've got a lot of money, and they've got a pretty talented roster. So now it is time to make our move and see the squad we've got available to us as we attempt to finish off this series by winning the Bundesliga and the DFB Pokal. So we will be starting negotiations with Wolfsburg. We are going to be making the move. They want to sign players under the age of 23. I'm all fine with that. They want us to reach the Champions League knockouts, which they've already done. Qualify for the Europa League. I think I can do that. I mean, we'll see. And then going forward, not a super lofty ambition, only top half finish, but I'm looking to win the Bundesliga. Want to give me 50K? I'm not sure what I'm actually at Barcelona. Probably a lot more than that. 130. So I'm definitely taking a step down, both in wage and in reputation of the club, but we've got to go forward in this series, and I'm not going to wait forever to find the perfect team. I'm just going to take a good job and see what I can do. And I feel like this is a good test for me. Let's go up to 50, just to make it nice and even. And let's do it. Let's make our move to Wolfsburg. And there we are. Everything's green, and Wolfsburg have hired Paris as their manager. This could be our final move in the series. Look at our players in the last year of their contracts. Some first-team players, including, I think, the only player that is there from the start, Maxence Lacroix, 33 years old, still a starter for us, still really good. And so he's contract expiring. I'll definitely want to tie him down. Balikwisha is a striker / winger for us that could be in and around the first team. Macias, 34 years old. He's still not bad. The physicals aren't amazing, but really good finishing. And this team this season has struggled for goals, so we might need him to be a goal scorer for us. But the rest of the players whose contracts are expiring, no real players of note. So now we get to take a look at our new squad. We're going to start out playing the 4-3-3, at least until we get to January. I think it's the best way to utilize the players we currently have at our disposal. And to start up top, we're going to have Jose Macias be our striker. This team has struggled for goals, and so I'm hoping he can be our goal scorer. He's only had 4 appearances this year, only 1 start, and he's yet to score. But last year he scored 10 goals. So I'm hopeful playing him up top in a new system, he can bring goals for us. On the left side, we've got Balikwisha, who's been their starting striker, and he only has 4 goals and 11. So I don't think I want him as a just solo striker up top. He only has 13 finishing. But on this left-hand side, cutting in on his right foot, I think he could be a little bit better there. Give him a little bit more freedom. Then on the right wing, really the reason we have to play with wingers is because their best performing this player this season is Luke Greenwood. The Australian winger, he's very fast. And he's kind of a similar player to Nico Williams, just a straight out winger, something I don't love, but he's been their best player this season. 7.3 average rating, 2 goals, 4 assists. And so I've kind of got to fit him in the team, and he's can really only play on the wings. So we're going to have to at least start with wingers, and Greenwood's kind of the reason why. But he's going to start out there as that normal winger. In our midfield, the 2 more attacking options. On the left-hand side is going to be Giuseppe Curzi, Italian international, 2 caps. Pretty solid player, really good creator, 17 passing, 16 vision, 16 composure. Not the best dribbling, not the best finishing. Tackling is decent. Really big issue with this team is they don't really have a midfielder that can tackle. They don't have any ball winners, and I do think that could be an issue. Hopefully we'll be all right, at least until January. I might have to bring somebody in. But Curzi has really good physicals, almost perfectly 2-footed, really good technical player. Hopefully he can be good for us. So far this season, he's had 10 appearances, 6.91, and he's never really been that great anywhere in his career. So we'll see what we have with Curzi, another position we might need to target. And next to him, we've got a player I actually really like, Jason Brito, the Englishman. I mean, physically, he's amazing. Really good dribbling, good finishing, good enough finishing for a midfielder. He's also a really good passer without the vision, but got good work rate. Mentals aren't exceptional, but he's good enough in the areas he needs to be good at. So I think he could actually be really good. This season, only 3 appearances, so they're not really using him, but 6.97, and he's got a goal in those. And last year, 2 goals and 13 appearances. I think he could be good. I don't think they're using him enough. I think he's one of their better midfielders. Then we've got our best player in the team, and one that is actually currently injured, which is unideal, for a couple weeks, I believe, 10 days to 3 weeks with a twisted ankle. And that is Ilyas Somai. He is a midfielder that can't actually play as a defensive midfielder, like, at all. But I'm going to take a risk, and I'm going to play him there. Because like I said, we don't really have any midfielder that can defend. The best one is Ilyas Somai. 10 tackling, 10 marking, 14 positioning. So I felt like we needed somebody to be defensive a little bit. And I could play him a little bit further forward as the same role, but I want him being a little bit behind those 2 midfielders and having a more defensive focus. So I'm going to try playing him as a defensive midfielder, but he's also our best player. So I want him to be heavily involved. I want him to get forward. So I'm going to use him as a roaming playmaker. He's got the physicals to be able to use it. I could play him as a deep lying playmaker just to make him a playmaker, but I don't want him to be on defend. I want him getting forward and using those physicals, using that dribbling. So we're going to be using him as a roaming playmaker. Originally, I planned a regista, but if you look at the description for the roaming playmaker, it's kind of exactly what I want. Heartbeat of the team, driving forward with the ball to spearhead attacks, as well as tracking back to cover defensively. Kind of need that in our midfield. Physical attributes to maintain a high intensity, technical attributes to stamp his authority on the game. He's got all of that. Pick the ball up in deep positions and work the ball forward with urgency, keeping up with play. Camp on the edge of the penalty area, looking for room to shoot or try that killer ball. So he does a little bit of everything. He can finish. He is a very good passer, so it just gives him so much freedom. Hopefully he can be heavily involved, both going forward and defending. Now moving over to our back line. At right back, we've got Ahmed Ramadan. Doesn't do a whole lot going forward, only 8 crossing, 11 dribbling, but he's very good physically. More of a defensive guy, but even though he doesn't have great tackling, his passing's good enough, his mentals are good. I don't think he'll be exceptional, but he should be a solid defensive piece for us. And we kind of need him to be on that side because our left back is very attacking. And that is Oscar Sala, the Argentinian. Only 8 tackling, but really good dribbling, really good first touch, can take a free kick, decent crossing, really good physically. So he's kind of like an Alphonso Davies type, but maybe not quite as good defensively. He's not Alphonso Davies, but he's still a pretty good player. Be the more attacking of the 2 fullbacks. And I think that works well with Ramadan. Then to center back, we've got a pretty good pairing. Lacroix, the only real player that's been with the team the whole way. And he is our captain, and he is still a really good player. His physical's still extremely good for 33 years old. Again, decent defensively. He's basically Tengai Nianzu, just not quite as good, but still pretty dang good. I'm happy with him. And on the left-hand side, we've got Yasir Benali, another really good center back. Aerially, not the best, 11 heading, but 14 jumping reach is fine. 6'2", good physically. Mentals are all really solid. Good defensively with that 16 tackling, 17 positioning. He even pass as well. Pretty good pairing of center backs there. And then at goalkeeper, we've got the only player we've actually had in this series. And we had him at Sporting, Benjamin Majcinic. And he never actually played for the Sporting first team. He was a youth player that we signed from Dynamo Zagreb for $1.3 million. I had a loan spell to Maccabi Tel Aviv. Never played for us. They sold him to Hamburg. I don't think I sold him. I think it was after I left. He played a little bit there for a few seasons, and then they sold him to Wolfsburg for $13.5 million. And he is our best goalkeeper, and he's not bad. 16 reflexes, 16 one-on-ones, really good aerial reach, 6'3", good jumping reach, throwing, positioning, concentration, anticipation. Yeah, I mean, he's no Diego Chiai. He's a legitimate goalkeeper. Fortunately, he is injured, 10 days to 3 weeks, but I think we're solid at the goalkeeping position. Now, looking at some of our depth pieces, we actually have a really good third center back, Florian Alien. Says he can play left back, but he's right-footed, so mostly just a center back. He is only 5'11", but he's got 12 jumping reach, which is good enough. Defensively, he's pretty solid, 15 tackling, 14 marking. Not a great passer, but really good positioning, really good mentals, solid defensive player. And so we're actually going to be playing a little bit 3 at the back at times to utilize him because he's one of our better players. He needs to play. Our backup right back is a little bit of an issue. It is a real player, but he's 36 years old. Rasmus Christensen, his physicals are basically non-existent. He can cross the ball really well, but he can't run and he can't dribble. So it's not going to be easy for him to get in positions where he can actually cross the ball. He is at least decent defensively. He's got some decent mentals. Definitely an area of concern. Wages aren't super high. I don't know if he's really ever been good in the recently. I mean, for Hertha, he played a little bit and was fine. Only made 1 appearance for them last year on the bench. I mean, I would consider bringing in a right back in January, but he is kind of versatile as well. Could play center back. He's got the size. Maybe in a back 3. I don't know if I trust him in a back 2, but he can also play left back or defensive midfield. So he's got some versatility, but just not a great player anymore. Our backup left back is a young wonder kid, Edin Spica. 2.5-star current ability, 5-star potential. He's perfectly 2-footed as well, so he can actually be a backup at right back as well. So I don't necessarily need a right back. I can get a left back and just move Spica to be the backup right back. Physically, he's decent for 19-year-old. Same for his mentals. Actually pretty solid. Really good teamwork. Going forward, doesn't have a lot right now. 10 crossing, 8 dribbling. But definitely pretty solid for a 19-year-old. Then we've got our backup, Ilya Somai, and unfortunately, he's also injured. Onur Aydin, 2 to 4 weeks. He's not very good defensively. Like, literally none of our other center backs are good defensively, but he's kind of the best we got. Really good physically, really good mentally. Technically, not a lot there. He's basically Mohamed Kamara, but only 27 years old. Then we got another real player, former Manchester United graduate, Isaac Hansen Aaron, at 29 years old, so he's still pretty young. Attacking midfielder, would play deeper as a central midfielder. Can't defend at all. 5 tackling, 8 marking, 6 positioning. But going forward, he's got really good physicals, really good dribbling, really good first touch, really good passing. Mentals are pretty solid. Yeah, I think he could be a backup at the Mazzala. Maybe could play over Brito if he isn't that good. I think he's a great depth piece to have at center mid. We got another backup center mid, Miko Tezic. He's fine. He's not really exceptional at almost anything. Physically, he's good. Almost 2-footed. Good passer. Again, doesn't do a lot defensively. Good technique. Dribbling's not really there. Not got really anything in terms of front and goal. He's fine as a backup player, and that's about it. Now moving over to the wings. Our backup right winger is basically just a worse Luke Greenwood. Elias Anastasiou, the German. I'm assuming he has Greek nationality as well. Right-footed, just a winger, and just exclusively a winger. Good physically. Doesn't have a whole lot else to his game. Is a depth piece, and again, nothing more. On the left-hand side, we've got Enoch Adji. He is left-footed, which is not ideal, but can play on the right-hand side at times. Another real player. Really good dribbling, really good first touch, decent passing, just not much finishing ability, can't really cross. Really good physically with that 20 agility, good mentals, good flair. I don't know what to expect from him. He's been decent for him the past 3 years, but yeah, he might find a way to work into the first team. I typically don't love players that don't have crossing, finishing, or amazing passing, but we'll see if he surprises me. Then we go to our backup striker. Obviously, Balikwisha could play there as well, but Ian Schneider is a youngster, 20 years old. That's not bad. Physically, he's pretty decent. 15 pace, really good strength, 5'11", decent passing, decent mentals. Got 12 finishing, which isn't great, but can drill a little bit. Decent first touch, really good technique. So maybe could be a more creative player. Could probably play that same deep lying forward role. Not an exceptional goal scorer. That could be an area of need, but Ian Schneider's still a decent young player. Then to fill it out with the rest of our depth role players, we've got another real player, Lenton Maina, a player that can play really almost anywhere along both wings or even through the middle. He's got pretty good vision, decent passing. Dribbling's a little bit low. I don't love him as a winger. His physicals are decent enough, but can't really dribble or cross or finish. Good mentals. Just a versatile piece that can also play a right wing back if we need him to. Then we've got our backup goalkeeper who's going to have to start for us at the start, Tomas Ziogas. He's fine, not as good as our starter, but still not bad. Another backup midfielder, another Englishman, Wayne Burgess. Again, really balanced, well-rounded, 25 years old, so maybe not a lot more potential, but just a good, solid depth piece that can play defensive midfield, even if he doesn't have the best of tackling. Kildall, another center back. We've got some decent center backs here. He's not great, only 12 tackling, but he's got 16 positioning, good marking. Mentals are fine. Physicals are pretty good, only 6 foot, but he's got 14 jumping reach. He's fine. Yeah, he's fine as a depth center back that can also play left back as well. And then we got just a couple more, really, I think that might get involved very much. Benjamin Lawrence. I actually kind of like Benjamin Lawrence. I don't know why. I just kind of do. And so he'll get some time, can play a lot of different positions on both wings or up top, even if he only has 10 finishing. So that is the squad that we got at our disposal. Definitely stuff there to work with, but we are going to have to add more pieces to this team if we're going to really compete with Bayern Munich. We look at the tactic we got for the 4-3-3. We've actually got a couple tactics, but for the 4-3-3, we're going to start balanced. Shorter passing, higher tempo. We've got really good passers in the midfield, and obviously we're not very good defensively, so I'm going to try to hold on to the ball a little bit, play with a little bit of width, pass into space, because we've got some good speed up top. Actually, for this one, with Macias up top, I don't want to pass into space, but if Balikwisha played a striker, I do think I would. But we are playing out of defense, working the ball in the box, low crosses. We don't really have anyone that's tall up front. In transition, we are regrouping, and we're rolling the ball out. We've got a playmaker in the defensive midfield, so I like to roll it out when you have that, to have the option of left back, center back, or the playmaker. No countering, no distribution. And then out of possession, we are only with the standard line of engagement. Our front three doesn't have the best work rate. I think Luke Greenwood is decent, but Balikwisha and Macias don't have great work rate. So I'm not going to play with a high line of engagement, something I usually do, but we'll see. I might have to put it back. It's usually what is the most effective, but for now, we're going to stay with the standard. We are going with a little bit higher defensive lines. We are trying to hold on to possession and triggering press just more often and forcing the opposition outside. And our second tactic, obviously I talked about Alien, wanting to get him involved because he's a really good player. So I've got one with 3 at the back. He's going to come in for Jose Juan Macias, so Balikwisha goes up top. And I think it works out pretty well for a couple of our players. Obviously, to get Alien involved is always good. Salah, I think this works really well for him because he is so attacking. Doesn't really have to worry about his defensive duties as much with being in a wing back with 3 behind him. I think I'd use this more against the better teams like Bayern, maybe Dortmund away from home. Obviously, the more I play with this team, the more I'll learn, and everything is subject to change. Then finally, we've got just a standard 3-4-3. This is basically just because we have all the injuries to 2 midfielders as well. So I think for the next few games, until those guys come back to get the best use of the players we got available, I mean, Alien is one of the best players we have on the bench. So I think without Soma, it makes sense to bring him in, and especially because we don't have any other midfielders that do anything defensively. So having 3 center backs behind him gives them a little bit more freedom to not have to be super defensive. So I think for now, for the next few matches, this is what I'll go with. But as soon as everybody's available, I plan on going back to the 4-3-3 and seeing how that's going to work. Obviously, we can't get a really good judge on this team on the first couple of matches without our best player, but I am still really excited to start playing with this team. Before we wrap this video up, we'll take a quick look at how they've done this season in their schedule. They are still in the DFB Pokal. They won in the first round against Fürstenwalde. In the second round, they beat Freiburg 3-0. And so they're still in the cup. In the Champions League, in the group, they had Red Star, Rangers, and Manchester United. So yeah, definitely one they should be getting through. And it looks like they are going to finish second. They've already qualified second ahead of Rangers and Red Star. Obviously, Manchester United win the group unbeaten. So we are going to be in the Champions League knockouts, but they have struggled recently in the Bundesliga. They started off decently well, went on a good running streak in September, and then they lost to Leverkusen, lost to Manchester United, lost to Dortmund. They have had a pretty tough schedule, which Gladbach, also a pretty good team. Lost to United again, lost to Hertha, also a good team. Drew with Frankfurt, so there's no bad losses in there. I think they're better than their position in the league states. So for next episode, we'll be playing our first matches as the manager of Wolfsburg. Our first one is away from home in the Bundesliga against Karlsruhe. They are currently 13th place in the league. And then we've got Augsburg at home for our home debut as the Wolfsburg manager. They're currently sitting in 11th. So I'll see you for that next episode. I hope you're excited for our final journey here in the Jose Mourinho Challenge. Wolfsburg are obviously going to be a new challenge for us, something different from Barcelona or Chelsea. We're going to be trying to win Wolfsburg's first Bundesliga title in 25 years. If you made it this far, why don't you like the video, subscribe, and click the bell? The links to all my socials and my Twitch are in the description. I really appreciate all your support. Thank you all for joining me, and I'll see you next time.